Happy Wednesday, everyone. I am here with our midweek check-in, and what I want to talk about is rituals. I have been reflecting a lot this week in particular around the role of rituals and how important they are not only in our faith and in our worship, but in our everyday living. I shared a bit on Sunday in our worship that the Palm Sunday rituals of marching together through the sanctuary, waving our palm branches high, singing a triumphant song, these rituals really help ground me in the story of Jesus' triumphant entry into Jerusalem. And without those rituals, without them being different this year, it was hard for me to find a place in the story or to see where a place might be in the story for me to enter in. And I naively or wishful thinking had hoped that Palm Sunday would be the hardest of that. But the truth is that Holy Week, Easter, all of these are worship experiences that are rich with different rituals that we share together. And so I'm wondering, what is Maundy Thursday going to be like? The story of hearing Jesus gathered with his disciples around him to share a meal, when we won't do that in the same way, at least not around the shared meal of communion. What does it mean to hear that story apart from that sacrament and that ritual? And Good Friday, what will it mean to hear that story apart from all the candles laid out in front of me, to extinguish them one by one, to hear the refrains of songs that ground me in the darkness, in the depth, in the heaviness, the brokenness, the pain of that story and of that day, to understand the reality of what it is that Jesus does in his life, endures in his life and in his death, to bring things right between God and the people of God. And I've been thinking a lot about how some of these rituals I can replicate. I can replicate them at home. I have candles at home. I'm hopeful that there are ways to replicate them, and the at-home worship guides can help with that. But I am very aware that the rituals are just different this year. And I'm aware in a new way of how much I rely on them. I'll also say that I don't have a good, ready answer to what do we do in the absence of these rituals, or when they are simply different. I don't have a good, ready answer for that. I'm still exploring, still creating different rituals, trying different ways of experiencing the story from my own home with the people in my family. And so I'd love to hear some of what you're doing to create some of these rituals, to adapt some of the rituals that are significant in your family at this time of year. I'm thinking as well about those in our daily lives. With schools officially out through summer, I'm wondering and thinking about our seniors, thinking about others who would go from milestones of leaving one school, going to another, and all of the ways that there are celebrations around that are communal, that are shared, the rituals of graduation, of prom, of even kindergarten graduations, preschool graduations. I'm just thinking about all the end of the year sorts of events. Field day. What does it mean to be people in the midst of the season when our rituals are different? And so one of the things that I have been reading and reflecting a lot about has been so many folks who have suggested creating new rituals in this season. And I think it's important to mention that a ritual we create for this season does not have to become a tradition for us. It doesn't have to be something that we do once, decide works, and do forever and ever and ever. It may not be something that is meaningful beyond this season, and it might be. But the idea of what does it mean to create some kind of practice to observe the milestone moments that you would otherwise be celebrating or recognizing in your family. Families experiencing loss and death and grief are especially, I think, feeling this of what does it mean to create a new ritual in this season when we're not able to do memorial services, funerals, burials in the ways that we have. And so I am wanting to share some of the rituals that I've had in my life that I've noticed have become kind of rituals for me in these past couple of weeks, share them with you. And really, really hoping that you'll share some of the things that are rituals for you that you're creating in this time. Any practice that helps kind of ground us in community and in connection and in faith, in God's presence. These are good things to be sharing with one another. I've noticed that one of the rituals that is different now in this time is that I take a walk every day, sometimes 2 walks, sometimes 3 walks a day, every day with Sasha, and these are much more of a stroll in a way that they have not been before. We go a lot slower. We look for teddy bears in the windows. Did you know that that's a thing, to put stuffed animals and teddy bears in the windows for kids to do what they call a bear hunt, right? Just like the song or the book, going on a bear hunt. So we take walks and we go on bear hunts, noticing them, stopping to celebrate the ones that we see. Or we do a scavenger hunt where we look for bird feeders or different birds, different plants, different flowers. We look for trampolines, sidewalk chalk art, all of these things that make our walks a little more slower, that really allow us to kind of rest in that time, in that space together, and notice things that we otherwise pass by. My hope is that a ritual helps ground us in noticing the moment that we are in. And so I would invite you to create different rituals in your own life. I'm honestly still working on the ones that are grounding me in my faith in this time. This time still feels a lot like a roller coaster for me, of some really high highs and really low lows. And the rituals are those moments that kind of ground me in whatever the moment is, recognizing God's presence. Some of the ones that have been important to me, some of the spiritual practices that have been important to me, like journaling, I've gone to that very intermittently in this season. Some of it has felt almost too hard for me to write down all of what I am holding or carrying in this season. And so some of my devotional practices have been different in this time. I've been doing a whole lot more reading other people's prayers and works and scriptures than I have been in reading one and then journaling about it. And it's okay that they're different. I don't know that it will always be this way beyond this season, but the rituals are those things that help us in the moment to kind of notice, to find ourselves in the stories of faith that we proclaim, to take our part in them, to take our part in the community of faith, the community around us, and being simply the body of Christ. So I would really love to hear some of the creative rituals or practices that you're up to in these days that help give meaning and grounding and connectedness to your moments. So I'd love to hear those if you'll share them with me. My friends, may the peace of Christ be with you. And may we know that this Holy Week, we are experiencing, I think, more so than any other Holy Week, closer to what it might have actually been like for those who walked it alongside Christ in real time. We too are experiencing the uncertainty, the unknown. We are experiencing, I think about some of the things that we know as traditions that weren't yet traditions because it was a first time experiencing them. And so we too are experiencing things in a new way this season. And I pray that through it all, through the grief, through the pain, through the fear, through the uncertainty, there will always be tremendous joy and good news. And so, my dear friends, I can't wait to hear how you're experiencing that. Take care.